welcome to my channel. Usually I don't make reviews, but I'm gonna make a review for Modern Warfare 2. This will be your host, so let's get right into it. So this is gonna be the start of the review, starting with the campaign. So when the campaign came out, we get a week early access to the campaign. Myself and everyone else thinks it was a great idea. I hope and wish it continues moving forward, especially when there's a lot of players that mainly plays multiplayer or battle royale. Even though as much I hate battle royale, there is a fan base over there too. So just like Modern Warfare 2019, it's somewhat long, as long you don't count dying a lot by bots on certain missions, one of them being recon by fire. If you get detected, you're basically instantly dead. Detection has been a little bit hit or miss. It's kind of shit, it's kind of good, all depends. And it's a lot harder if you're playing it on Vitran. Let's just hope you can get through it. When I first played through it on Vitran after beating the campaign the first time, playing it the second time, hit detection was way worse, and getting detection from the AIs that they don't know where you are, they somehow know where you are, which is worse than Modern Warfare's original version, which if I can remember it, all gilly up. So I find the story as a whole very confusing. I know they were mixing like Warzone 1 and Spec Ops into it, but how do we go from Warzone 1, from that storyline, up to Modern Warfare 2? That's the one thing I'm more confused about. Why did we have to kill the guy in the beginning of the mission? What happened to Al-Assad, or whatever his name is in this version? Besides that, I did enjoy these missions, especially Recon by Fire, as it's an amazing mission. You get to use a sniper, thermal sight, suppressor. Very fun, very interesting. It gives you that all gilly up vibes. The one, like I mentioned earlier, the one downside I would say about playing the campaign or the second playthrough, if you're already beating it the first time on like the lowest difficult team, the bots are very veteran. If you ever play like Mass Effect 2 or 3, it's almost like those type of AIs when you're playing it on Insanity. They're really hard to kill. But from top of my head, missions like Recon by Fire or Countdown, where AIs are on steroids with aimbot, and I'm not joking about it. If you try to play it, if you try to watch anyone attempt it, whether it's live, through videos, whatever, the AIs will beam you down once you pick your head out. It's very hard to try to kill them and duck back down. It's not like Modern Warfare 2019, where AIs on that one was more tame than what Modern Warfare 2 has. And I generally want to get this off my chest because at the time when I was writing this, a lot of people had issues with it, and it's been however long it's been. I actually like the Prison Break mission. I really do. Using the CCTV is really nice touch. I don't really understand how people don't like it. Like, it's not hard to use, it's not hard to understand. It's like you have to basically, well, I guess you have to play like strategy games to understand it, as that's how I'm taking it as. But like I was mentioning, it's not really hard to understand and get used to with. It's very fun overall. Basically, what you have to do in Prison Break is, like I said, you use the CCTV. Basically, you're controlling the cams, and then you're telling basically Ghost on where to go, where to move, plan your steps, and not like get him killed basically. And it reminds me a lot of Call of Duty Ghosts when you had to control Riley or the sniper sentry gun. So it reminds me almost around those missions. And like I said, this is when around the time I made this, beginning of the year overall, adding more and more to it. I still don't know if this is an issue still after launch, but the achievements for the campaign wasn't popping up. I've made a few videos on my channel these guides about these achievements, and pretty much all of them did not pop up. And I don't know if they were showing in the throughout the game, the playthrough. They were not popping up at all. Because if you're like an achievement hunter and trying to go for it, I can understand why people would heavily dislike Prison Break, as the achievement was not popping up. Besides that, I don't know what else to say about the campaign, as I usually do enjoy COD campaigns regardless. Doesn't matter if the multiplayer is shit and all that, but the campaign is the really fun part before you get into the multiplayer. The story is amazing. Weapon is a lot more balanced in campaign than it is in multiplayer. It's really fun. I'm looking forward to seeing what else they're gonna do to it. At this point, I'm kind of looking forward to Modern Warfare 3 this year and see how they're going to continue the story, as Warzone 2 and DMZ doesn't feel like they're continuing the story at all anymore. Right now, it's only through Raid. So it'll be interesting on what they're going to do for Modern Warfare 3. So now here is the multiplayer side. Even when I typed this, at the time of writing this, I was not going to go for Orion because I did not want to deal with any more of that bullshit with wasting like half to a full clip into an enemy and not getting the kill, which now I'm saying it as skill-based damage, and a lot of people are agreeing that there is that type of manipulation going on in the multiplayer side. It's not as it's more egregious than compared to like skill-based matchmaking. Besides that, that's the time so now I do have Orion, and I'm gonna try to show them whenever I can. I can end up stop doing it at some point, as I'm not dealing with it anymore. So apologies if you don't see all of the base weapons or the future DLC weapons. So I got some video plans going up for it, for like gun showing gold, plat, Orion, and polyatomic. That's going to be coming up here soon, whenever I can. You might see some in the gameplay or in the video background, depends on how this works. So just from my own standpoint, if you're a player that likes to camo grind, go for like the mastery camo. It's not worth getting Orion, since no matter what you do, to increase the TTK on the certain guns, the skill-based damage will fuck you over completely. It is very heavily manipulated gameplay. I just wish they fix that, either remove it as a whole or not make it where it doesn't nerf you. And it'd be better if devs just let old school players work on the camo grind without any need to worry about a shitty skill-based damage. As like I mentioned, once you start shooting, it takes like a half a clip to a full clip just to put one guy down, and that's not fun. And I also want to put this in here. I still want to say this small message to all the so-called pro players and content creators. I really would love to see you guys get off your ass and call out the devs. Some of these changes are devs pretty much thinking changes. Instead of crying about Activision, bring up some issues that is going on with the game from the devs. Skill-based damage is one of them. Nerfs that is not needed with these guns. All the shitty ideas with these maps. This is why I hate Call of Duty YouTube channels now, ever since 2019, as they have like some sort of double standards, and I fucking hate it. And they all always say they want old school COD. Modern Warfare 2019 felt more old school than both Vanguard and Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. But if you're a all-time grinder and liking multiplayer, I personally highly recommend skipping Modern Warfare 2, as it's nowhere near fun like Modern Warfare 2019 or the older COD games. And it even sucks now because there's now cheating, cheaters becoming a problem, and it's getting worse, especially over on the rank side. It's getting worse. The only positive side I could take about this for Modern Warfare 2 is I love the idea of easier camo grind, but that idea can get thrown out the window once you have to deal with shitty TTK, which is basically the skill-based damage, if you want to call it that. I don't mind leveling up my guns up to 50 again, or 55, but if they're gonna make camos short and simple, make them all go up to 10 or 15, as it's gonna take forever to level these weapons up. Even back at launch, when I would use these XP tokens, it would still take as long as it would if you're playing Vanguard, where you have to go up to level 75 with each weapon. So it still takes as long as that. Like I always say in my videos, call me out if you like, but there is really no SBMM like content creators are crying about. As a person who mainly enjoys multiplayer, I can't say I enjoyed the game, especially with skill-based damage and that's being involved. Not just all of this that's making multiplayer feel shit. There's a mode called, at the time there was a mode that came out around season 1 called Terror 1. From what I've been hearing, people are saying it's basically realism mode from Modern Warfare 2019 that played it. And what made it shit and sucky at launch was there was no hardcore. We didn't get hardcore until Season 2. Let me just repeat that. We didn't get hardcore until Season 2. This is why I say YouTubers need to call out these devs. They're drip feeding content like they're new content. These maps do not feel like new maps. Just give it to us at day 1. Hardcore, it should not come out at all. It should be day 1. That's absolutely shit idea whoever came up with that. I don't know what else to say about multiplayer. Wanted to make a better review after unlocking like the mastery camo. Gold, plat, polyatomic, and then the Orion. But by the time I wrote this, I'm not gonna be working on any more after that. After this, I got it, Orion. That's all I care about. If they just take out the skill-based damage, yeah, I'll probably go back into it, as it's a nightmare right now. So for right now, this will be the multiplayer side review of how I've been feeling and thinking about the multiplayer side. So now we're moving on to DMZ. So at the time, I was not making progress before, and I still want to include it somehow. I wasn't sure how I want to approach it, but since I did make some progress, and I cannot make a progress since the first reset, and till now, I'm not really making progress. I'm still gonna try to talk about it. So what's there to say about DMZ? Yeah, well, at the time I said there was nothing, but there is a lot now. I would love it if it's single player or solo friendly. At the time when it came out, I think it was like Season 1 or Season 1 Reloaded. When that came out, bots were really, really hard. Like, it's not impossible to complete certain missions, but they were just everywhere, aimbotting you, aiming you. It was just generally hard. Over time, they were nerfing it, balancing it, and then over time, I don't know when it was, as I haven't played DMZ in a long time, or at least since the trophy event. The AIs were a lot more balanced whenever I went back on there. But ever since I started trying to get back on there again, the AIs are nowhere near balanced like it did before. It's like basically Season 1 if you ever played it back in Season 1. He will automatically kill you, beam you. You won't get enough time to react. Let's say, for example, if you spawn in one of the sides, let's say the docks or near a football field, the AIs will just automatically target you and kill you right off of spawn. And it's personally, I think it's getting worse over time. I don't think they know how to balance them properly. And I just want to say is, what happened to a good balance of AIs? Modern Warfare 2019 had a perfect AIs that was balanced. Why not bring that from that game over to not just the campaign side, but DMZ? But what DMZ is, it's basically a reskin of Warzone, but with more AIs and maybe 2 to 3 groups of players. And at the time, I typed this and made this, and still, when I was playing it and still trying to play it, I was barely finding or encountering groups. But ever since they did a change with the spawn points, now they are spawning right directly next to your spawn point, and you cannot get out of it. It makes it shit when you're trying to work on challenges or anything. You'll either get sniped or you'll get dogpiled, and it's not fun. At this point, I like to say is, if people are PvPing in EMC, why not go into Warzone? If you're so wanting to go after like players. I'm pretty sure I really do wish DMZ was more of a PvE, where you can just group up and then just play with other players instead of fighting them. Because it's bad enough that the bots are a lot harder to deal with, and it's not fun when you're trying to work on challenges or whatever you're trying to do on DMC. Especially if you're one of those players that do not care for the PvP aspect or want to go after players. Since I'm talking about players, at the time of when it first came out, there were not many hostile players. There were actually a lot of tamed players that doesn't care for the PvP aspect, and it's quite a shame there's no more of that anymore. You'll probably run into some players that are in vehicles that won't like. Let's say you're in the vehicle and they're in the vehicle, they won't chase you down or anything. They'll just run past you, and they're just not gonna care. Those kind of players I love encountering, because none of us really, anyone who plays DMC really does not care for its PvP aspect. As like I said, we have Warzone for the PvP aspect. I just don't understand why we need a PvP in the first place. The entire time I was playing DMC, this is what I was just mentioning, there was only AIs and rarely any players. DMZ can be fun if AI wasn't everywhere and only selected places like strongholds, certain contract, and boss zones. There's a more mission to do besides playing DMZs or weapons and weapon cases. Let me introduce you to fractions, which is the missions I was mentioning. We haven't had a fraction-based mission since Infinite Warfare days, and that was just for the multiplayer side when Infinite Warfare came out for fractions. Since now DMZ came out, now there's fractions once again. It's kind of nice to see that return. Completed fractions, depending on which one you're doing, which is the Black Cell, White Lotus, or whatever, will give you a lot of rewards. Depending on which one you complete, will give you whatever rewards attached to it. Whether it's blueprints, skins, XP, contraband, weapons, or whatever. I'm sure there's more to it now, since by the time I was writing this was a long time ago when it first came out. So there were only 5 at a time, which is Legion, White Lotus, 5 tiers. Sorry, misreading that. There are 5 tiers for each fraction. Legion, White Lotus, Black Mesa, and there's like more fractions now. Crossing Crown is one of them. Redacted. You can either complete all missions or only 5 to unlock the next story mission. Up to now, you only start with Legion. Okay, give me a second. At the time when this came out, you only had Legion and White Lotus fraction to start with. But ever since now, you only can work on Legion. You can't work on White Lotus or the other fractions. But once you complete both of the, at the time, those fractions, and now if you just complete Legion Tier 2, you'll unlock White Locust. If you complete Locust Tier 2, you'll unlock the Black Moles, and then so on and so forth with the others. Some of these missions can be easy or hard depending on if you're playing a solo, co-op, or squads basically. It depends on how you're playing. Some of the majority of the missions can be done solo, but most missions like Agam and Tagdom, I would highly recommend playing with 2 other players, which is, you have to go after players. If I remember right, when I had it unlocked at the time, you have to kill 3 enemies and pick up their tag and exfil with them. So that can be challenging because you could be fighting, like, let's say, a squad of 3 players. So you can kill them solo, but it could be challenging. And just like I just mentioned just a few seconds ago, you can get lucky by killing all 3 players solo. There were some plans of making DMC like new maps or buildings being added, but I don't have, at the time until recently, I now have the key card for Building 21, and I don't think I'm gonna make the video at all now. But I do think it should be open 24/7. Right now, currently, it's only you only can play for 3 days, which is like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday over the weekend. And at the time, the only way you can get these Building 21 key cards is by completing fraction missions, as some of them do have it. There were some dailies in them. Okay, I don't remember. Okay, now since I'm looking back, I don't remember about dailies or trading normal keys to Building 21. I don't remember that. But I know you can ask players to do some dropping for Building 21 key card or whatever if they don't use it. But that's about it. And now they added a new section in the Al Mazrah, and they also added the Ashiki Island. So that's nice. I'm hoping to see more. And at least with Ashik Island, now that one is basically 24/7 open, unlike Building 21. Overall, I don't know what else to say about DMZ. I do enjoy playing DMZ, but it's not fun if you play solo and getting beamed by AIs 24/7, and you still can get beamed 24/7, which I'm not gonna change that or correct that. So yeah, just know that some of these parts I was mentioning within the DMZ review or talking about, there's some of them are outdated. But either way, I just stopped playing DMZ, and here's the review, or this section of the review, the DMZ review. Now, here we are on the final part of the review, the Battle Royale. And at the time of making this, I would think about making Ray review part 2, but because I'm not playing the third one, or kind of lost interest after the second one, I might not be making that anymore or anytime soon. And I still will take this, the stupid ass multiplayer killer, basically the Battle Royale. That's what killed Black Ops 4 multiplayer being interesting and fun. If you didn't have to deal with 150 health, and that's basically what ruined Call of Duty multiplayer after Modern Warfare, ever since Warzone came out. What's there I can say is not much, as I never really cared too much for it. I have tried in Warzone 2.0, not as good, and now it's basically Battle Royale is now the more focused than the main base game, which is multiplayer, which is quite a shame if you want to talk about it. Ever since Black Ops Cold War went $70, they're not really taking care of the multiplayer side anymore. That's been the lost focus now, and I feel really shamed and sad now about it, because Battle Royale has been the main focus since then. From at least when I did try playing it and giving it a try. I do like the looting system. It's not better than either Blackout or Warzone 1, but I do like the looting system at least. I still prefer Blackout over Warzone 2, especially with its looting system. The idea of having a 2v2 gulag is very interesting for modes like duos, triples, or quads. But as I was finding out when you're playing as solo, I just find it so stupid in solo. At least in solo, it should be 1v1. I know at the time of writing this, they did not have it 1v1, but now they did change it as 1v1 across, I think, all the modes. Another thing I found interesting is a third-person mode, which I believe I made a video on and uploaded it, so it is very interesting. But this also did make me wonder a bit why we didn't have it in Warzone 1. It would be nice to have as Blackout. Blackout is a good prime example that was a nice idea and wasn't bad executed, as we did have a third-person mode in Blackout. Sadly, it was only for the parachute, but it was really nice idea overall. But if I ever do want to play go back and play a Call of Duty Battle Royale, I would not mind if they bring back Blackout, making it Blackout 2.0, and making it free to play. I think free to play would be a good idea. I can understand from a standpoint because of the cheaters going on. You're always going to get cheaters, whether it's paid or free, so it really won't matter as much. But I do think we had a better anti-cheat in Blackout than we did with Warzone and Warzone 2. Just to put more perspective in it, Blackout had a perfect looting system, and on top of that, you never needed a meta meta shit, like anything meta. You never needed that. All you needed that would maybe consider being meta is just having some sort of sniper rifle or a AR for long-range engagement, with a secondary being a submachine gun or a shotgun for like up close and personal, which is why I like the Blackout system, as the time to kill across assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, and snipers, they were all really well balanced and really fun. It's probably the only reason why I played Blackout way more when it first came out in the multiplayer after unlocking Dark Matter. Oh, and on top of that, you didn't even need a loadout. I think what killed, this is what I think can kill them Battle Royale, as none other Battle Royale does this loadouts. That's probably what's killing Warzone and why it's not feeling as great like the other Battle Royale. You really don't need a loadout. If you want a loadout, just go into multiplayer at that point. Keep the Battle Royale loot base. Otherwise, what's the point of labeling it as a Battle Royale if you can just spawn in with a loadout? The whole point of a Battle Royale, and this is why Blackout did so much better than the two later on, Warzone and Warzone 2, is its looting system. You're supposed to look for weapons and gathering them. If they're going to do something like rarity, they should just done it where certain weapons, certain rarity does more damage than the others, like what Fortnite does. You don't need attachments, you don't need anything, just damage-based rarity. They could have done it so much better overall. And like I was mentioning, in Battle Royale, where it's survival to the fittest, you should be only using ground loot, like majority of the BRs that are doing it. Fortnite, PUBG, H1Z1, Apex. Besides that, I don't really know what else to say. I still basically hate BR as a whole because how multiplayer has been becoming throughout the years. And now I kind of like to say this now. It's actually good to know that these streamers are noticing how it feels when a game was heavily focused one part of the game versus 2 to 3 parts, depending on the devs and who's making a certain game. Like for example, Treyarch makes zombies multiplayer. That's the biggest focus for them. Modern Warfare was, well, basically multiplayer. So they understand now why this is happening. They now know how multiplayer players feel when Warzone 2 came out. I also like to point this out. I think it's why multiplayer died and became more of a shell of itself was because of those streamers. If you try to watch them, none of them actually did play the older Call of Duty. People are saying, if I remember right, someone mentioned to me that Nick Merckx did something like that back in the day. I highly fucking doubt that. I really highly fucking doubt that. Same thing with Dom. So, like, did they really actually play it, or did they only play it once and just gave up because it's not giving them views? Like, I like to think if you're playing Call of Duty, you should not care if it gives you views or not. That's what ruins good content now these days, and it's even worse now with AI stuff, which I'm planning on making a video for that soon. But yeah, it's kind of shit. This is the end of the Battle Royale section, and I will be making the conclusion here, and then I'll be making other final thoughts about Modern Warfare 2. So this is the final part, the conclusion, basically. So overall, how do I feel about this game across all modes? I kind of have a mixed feeling about each modes that I listed: campaign, multiplayer, DMZ, Battle Royale. I do try to enjoy the multiplayer side as much possible as I can, and it's as long as you don't got people saying, especially when it comes from the so-called pros, is not hearing how bad it is. Like, it can be good if you don't listen to it so often. Oh yeah, my favorite crit, I don't care, as I try to avoid that. But the so-called pros can either adapt or just by getting good at all. And the reason I say that is I'm more confident enough that back in the go days, I'm pretty sure they all just reverse boosted and just up stomp like they're good or something, because I don't ever remembering seeing any ways to be good. I am getting good overall, as it takes years to get good. It doesn't take one complete year to be good. If you want me to say it, if you're a long time Call of Duty player, I would say skip this game, like I have mentioned in multiplayer, as that might be the main focus of it. Time to Kill is still absolute shit. Even after writing this, it still is. I thought it got changed when I first got back into it in Season 3, but clearly it won't get changed. I just don't really see how we had a perfect Time to Kill in 2019 to a dumbed down version of Vanguard's Time to Kill. And like what I wanted to mention is I didn't even know skill-based damage was started in Vanguard, as I just now realized it. Time to Kill in Vanguard gotten worse over time because of the skill-based damage, and that started to affect the Modern Warfare 2, and you can easily tell the difference between them. Either way, this is just my review on it. I still highly recommend you just make your own judgment if you want to buy it or skip it. Personally, I would ignore trash pros who bitches about skill-based matchmaking, as all they want is pop stumping and a 15.0 KD, which it's, in my eyes, in my own opinion about it, it's still a shame because you're not really a pro. If you want to be a pro, having 2.0 or higher is good enough, or even 1.0. And those who are just wanting to pop stump doesn't want a challenge. That's another core issue about why they are bitching about skill-based matchmaking. Leave a like if you want, dislike if you want. Really doesn't matter to me. This has been the review. Hope you enjoy. If I do make any more, it's because let's say if I wanted to continue doing this, drop down and give me 50 likes. Maybe I'll continue it throughout the years. Besides that, been your host, and have a wonderful day.